My favorite childhood ghost story. This was my go-to ghost story to tell whenever I would sit around the campfire in Boy Scouts or whenever I wanted to scare the crap out of my little brother and his friends. And in honor of Halloween 2021, I'm going to tell the story of Bloody Fingers for the first time in 30 years. In text form on my blog at www.socialmusingsbyaustin.com and in audio form right here on the Social Musings by Austin YouTube channel. The year was 1985 when I first heard this horror story, and my mom was dating a man named Jim who had played football at Odessa Permian. Yes, that Odessa Permian juggernaut that would win state championships year after year, and which was the true inspiration for the book and TV series Friday Night Lights. Jim played defensive lineman for the Permian Panthers, and he wore his state championship ring from the 1972 season proudly. It was the largest piece of jewelry I had ever seen at that time. And Jim was the one who originally told me this tale, as it happened in his hometown of Odessa, Texas. So here's the story of Bloody Fingers. If you know West Texas, you know that life is all about oil and high school football. And it also used to be about caliche mining. Well, and you might ask, what is caliche? Well, caliche is a sedimentary rock, and it's used as a binder for gravel roads and in cement production. And caliche quarries are prevalent in the Midland, Odessa area. Now, many of the football players on Jim's state championship team had summer jobs in these so-called caliche pits, earning extra money just in case their college and professional football careers didn't work out, as was unfortunately often the case. And one of these such players was Jimbo, the high school's star running back. Now, Jimbo was loved by everyone, his teammates, the cheerleaders. Heck, the entire community was counting on Jimbo to help deliver Permian another state title. One day on the caliche pit job site in the summer of 1973, the mine's foreman, a guy named Buck, decided that a project was falling behind and to continue blast mining the caliche rock with dynamite after the sun went down. And Jimbo's best friend on the team, Johnny, well, he worked with Jimbo in pairs that evening laying the dynamite, which was usually done in the daylight. Well, now Johnny had been out late drinking the night before with his girlfriend Betty Sue down at the local makeout spot outside of town. He certainly had not planned on working a double shift the next day at the mine. And as Jimbo and Johnny laid their final dynamite charges for the evening, Johnny slipped on the loose caliche rock and he broke his leg. The fuse was burning on the lit dynamite as Jimbo rushed towards Johnny and he threw him to safety. Boom! The dynamite stick blew up, and when the dust settled, Johnny was badly hurt. As the emergency teams arrived, they tended to Johnny. They searched for Jimbo, but there were no remains, except for the bloody parts of 2 fingers, which appeared to be Jimbo's. It was as if he had been blown into smithereens. Well, obviously the community was shocked and saddened. A big funeral procession lined the streets of downtown Odessa, and the head football coach even gave the eulogy. That fall, Permian made it to the regional finals, but fell short in their bid of repeating as Texas State high school football champions. A few years went by. The mine was still operational, and the football team was a perennial contender but could never win the big game again. The memory of Jimbo slowly faded away. By 1978, Buck, remember him, the mining site foreman, well, he had made enough money to buy the mine from its former owners. Now, this money was made partially through legal means and partially through shady illegal deals where innocent people got hurt, which no one knew about except for Buck. One night late, after the employees had left for the evening, Buck took a drive around his newly owned property. And there was a cross at the site where the dynamite explosion had occurred to commemorate the suspected death of Jimbo and the maiming of Johnny. Buck pulled up in his pickup truck to the cross when his truck suddenly shuddered and the engine died. Buck stepped out of the truck, his headlights still on, shining on the memorial cross where the accident had happened not even 5 years earlier. A cold wind blew even though it was the summertime. Buck thought he heard a voice in the West Texas wind, which blew across the mine. Bloody fingers. Bloody fingers. Buck thought, what the fuck? The voice grew louder. Bloody fingers. Bloody fingers. The truck lights went out. And all was dark and silent. The next morning, Buck's workers found his body next to the cross. The police found no clues, and the coroner ruled it a heart attack. A few weeks later, the fall football season began. And after a huge home victory, the students would head out to the local makeout spot, that same one where Johnny had taken Betty Sue the night before the dynamite accident. Well, it just so happened the school's biggest bully and jock at the time, his name was Billy Bob. And Billy Bob was drunk after the game, and he was celebrating his 2 touchdown catches. And he done grabbed one of them freshman girls and threw her into the back seat of his Ford Bronco. As he took off her shirt against her wishes, he heard a voice coming from the back seat of the Bronco. Bloody fingers! Bloody fingers! The freshman girl screamed as a huge arm and hand, missing 2 bloody fingers at the stubs, it grabbed Billy Bob. She ran out of the Bronco screaming bloody murder. When the cops arrived, there was no sign of Billy Bob except for blood strewn through the inside of the Bronco. They questioned the girl, who was clearly distressed. However, their inquiry was fruitless, and in the end, no charges were filed. By this time, and due to the unbelievable sworn testimony of this freshman girl, the town of Odessa became obsessed with a myth. And the myth was that Jimbo had somehow survived the unfortunate dynamite accident and was living somewhere out in the West Texas desert, missing fingers and all. Like the Grim Reaper, Jimbo, or his ghost, was wreaking havoc on any and all unsavory characters in Odessa. Now, this story was so widespread, the parents told it to their kids to behave, or else Jimbo would come get them, and it usually produced the desired effect. Let's turn back to Johnny. Remember him? He was Jimbo's best friend, and there at the mine that night. And after losing a leg in the accident, Johnny became an alcoholic and was frequently seen in a dive bar on the edges of town. One night, Johnny got drunk and drove his truck out into the desert to fire off his shotgun into the night air, one of his favorite pastimes. You see, Johnny had always felt guilty about what happened. He knew that if he had gone home to bed early instead of drinking at the makeout spot with Betty Sue, then the accident would never have happened. Well, at that point, the whiskey was just coming on in waves, in and out. And Johnny had heard the myth about his friend Jimbo and had just read in the paper what had happened to Billy Bob. The full moon hung high in the West Texas sky as shotgun blasts from Johnny's gun rang out. A voice from the east whistled. Bloody fingers. Bloody fingers. Johnny could see a form in the moonlight with the silhouette of Jimbo on the horizon. Bloody fingers. Bloody fingers. Johnny done peed his pants. The figure was almost upon him. Bloody fingers. Bloody fingers. The tumbleweeds were stained with blood in the morning when the sheriff pulled into the crime scene. Johnny's body lay mangled in the desert. The only piece of evidence they ever found was one state championship football ring from that good old year, 1972. No one ever heard from Jimbo again, but sometimes if you listen really hard, on a full moon, you can hear. The end.